Hello, welcome back to another episode of Sales Q&A Daily for AEs. My name is Leah, and I'm a certified sales coach and trainer, and I help AEs uplevel their business acumen, gain more confidence, and close more deals faster with a higher ARR so you can crush your quota. So today we're tackling the question, what is the one question to ask to uncover urgency? So the fact is that a lot of deals die, or most deals die for one of two reasons. It's not because of the reasons you might think. It's not because of price, and it's not because you have done something wrong or you haven't built rapport. The main reasons why we see deals die is because we haven't uncovered the urgency and we haven't uncovered the COI, right? And COI, which is cost of inaction, and urgency go together. So that's the reason why most deals die. The next reason is because we don't have all the stakeholders and we don't have all of their priorities in full view. So we don't have visibility to that. But today we're going to be tackling the one question to ask to uncover urgency. When we're talking about uncover urgency, remember we had talked about this a few days before. We're not talking about fake urgency, right? So we're not talking about finding the pain, which you probably have heard. We're not talking about discounting. Oh, if you sign by the end of this month, we're going to give you a discount. That's not urgency. That's not real urgency. That's kind of like manipulation. And also, it can also backfire on you, right? So if you're trying to create urgency with a discount, unless you are willing to put teeth to it and really stick by it, it's going to mean nothing. And then you've instantly lost your credibility. So that's why we don't want to do that. So here's the one question to ask to uncover the urgency that your buyer may not know is there. And that question is, what happens if, right? So of course, there's always nuance and there's context when we talk about asking questions in discovery when we are in conversations with our buyer. There's always nuance and context. So the main issue that we're trying to get when we ask what happens if, we're trying to uncover if there's a real reason for our buyers to buy, right? And so when we're in discovery with our client, what we have to understand, and this is one of my big things, right? I want to bring integrity back to the process. I want to bring it back to what we do as sellers, so our buyers feel it and it just feels better to everyone altogether. So we are never doing anything that is not in the buyer's best interest, right? Let me repeat that again. We're never doing anything that is not in the buyer's best interest. So we always have their best interest at heart. We always have the best interest of the organization at heart too when we're having these conversations. So we're not looking for pain. We're looking to solve a core business issue that, again, affects the overall operations, profitability, financials, etc. of the business. So that's what we're doing. So when we are asking this question, we're trying to find out, have we really uncovered the urgency and the reason that the buyer should buy, right? So let me give you a great example of this. And this is a real life example that I posted the other day. I wanted a new blender because my blender broke. I'm really attached to this Oster brand because I've had Osters for literally years. Every time I buy a blender, it's the Oster brand. So anyways, my blender broke. The motor wasn't spinning properly or what have you. I wanted a new blender. So I went to my husband. I'm just like, we need a new blender. My blender broke or what have you. He agreed to it. We had placed the order for the blender and it's on its way. In fact, it's supposed to be here today. Unbeknownst to me, my husband went back and decided that he was going to take this blender apart, looking at all the parts, looking at what was broken. He went online, now not telling me any of this. He went online, he found a kit that would fix the blender. He ordered all the parts. So now the parts are coming, and what's going to happen is we're going to send the new blender back when he fixes the old one. I wanted a new blender. It's not going to happen. But the point is, had I told him, hey, I want this new blender because it does X, Y, Z that the old one doesn't do. Or if he had asked me the question, what's going to happen if you don't get the new blender? Then I would probably have given him the answer and I would have my new blender, right? So the point is, when we are in discussions with our buyers, we need to know why they want to change, and is it compelling enough, or is the problem big enough for them to actually go through with it? Because what happens is we haven't uncovered the COI, which is the cost of inaction, versus the ROI, which we talked about the other day. ROI is a future construct. It's something that we're promising them that's going to happen tomorrow, right? Or later on down the line. It's not fixing what's wrong in the business today. And that is what we want to stay rooted in when we're in discovery with our buyer. So that's why we want to uncover COI versus ROI. And if you want to know more about this, I'm happy to have a discussion. DM me the word AE, and we can discuss some one-on-one coaching. So anyway, back to COI versus ROI. COI is much more effective at uncovering the urgency versus the ROI. The ROI can't do that because it's in the future. The COI affects what's happening in the business today and fixes the problem that's going to happen today, right? So what happens is when we are calculating the COI, typically we want the COI to be 3 to 4 times the price of your solution. If it's too close to the price of your solution, or the gap isn't big enough, then the urgency is probably not there and your deal is going to be at risk, right? So we always want to ask that question. Now, here's another example of a client that I was coaching, an AE of a really large organization. I was coaching him, and we had this deal that we were reviewing. And when we reviewed the deal and we reviewed the recordings, it came out that the COI wasn't that big. The issue was that his potential buyer was on one platform and was going to switch to a new platform, to their platform. And the reason that they were going to switch was because they had some customer service issues or what have you, right? And there were some other little niggling issues, but that was the biggest one where they wanted to switch. And the rep at the other company hadn't gotten back to him. And so my client went through all these gyrations to calculate the COI we were talking about. I'm like, okay, what's the COI? Gave me a dollar amount. What's the cost of the solution? Gave me a dollar amount. I'm like, okay, that's not big enough. The COI is not big enough for them to make the switch. It just isn't. Because if you think about it, what's involved in selling, in sales, it's all about change, all about change management. And our brains are wired to resist it, right? No matter what, even if what's happening now is not ideal and the solution that they are using now is not ideal, the brain is telling them it's going to be hard to switch, and your brain is going to keep you rooted in the status quo. So that's what we're fighting. We're fighting the status quo, right? We're competing more against the status quo than anything else when we're talking to a buyer, particularly when we're talking about switching solutions, platforms, or what have you. So we determined that the COI, the cost of inaction, was really quite low compared to the effort that they would have to go to switch. When you're talking about implementation, when you're talking about training new people on the new platform, when you talk about switching processes, right? All of this is going on in your buyer's brain, whether you realize it or not. So we have to take that into account. And this is why the COI, why we say it has to be 3 or 4 times the cost of your solution, right? To overcome all of that. So the COI was quite low. So what happened was he had gotten off the call, my client had gotten off the call, and then he had a hard time re-engaging. And so I told him, I said, first of all, the COI isn't that big. I want you to re-engage him. And I gave him a strategy to do that and ask, what happens if you don't make the switch? And another key question that I had my client ask the buyer, what happens if the other organization fixes these issues? Right? So now we've taken the main reason why the buyer said they wanted to switch, which was the customer service problem. And we're asking, well, what happens if they come back and fix that? Given that the cost of inaction is very small, And the barrier to switching to a new platform is much higher, right? So I had my client ask him that question. And then what we also want to do when we're asking that question, what happens if, we also want to give context, right? Because we want to give a voice to all of these unknown things that are going on in the buyer's mind that we have to know are going on, right? So many times as AEs, we have our blinders on, right? So we only see what's in front, but we don't see all the other things that's happening in the buyer's mind, that's happening in the organization. Maybe they have to sell this this product, solution, or service. They have to sell the switch internally, which happens a lot, even with highly transactional products. It happens, right? So we have to have this in our consciousness that all these things are going on in the buyer's mind. So what happens if you don't do this now? Or what happens if your vendor comes back and they fix that issue? And if they cannot answer that, then your deal's at risk and it's not real. It's not really qualified at that point, and it shouldn't be, at least not in the latter stages of your pipeline. Okay, so I had my client ask that question and also give context. So let's go back to the context, because numbers thrown out in a vacuum don't mean anything. And honestly, decision makers see numbers and it's either big or small to them, right? And so they make decisions based on that. Without the context, you really have nothing. So we have to give context. So what happens if the vendor comes back and fixes this issue? And what happens then? What happens if you don't make this switch? And the reason I'm asking is experience has shown me that if they come back, being that the cost of an action is quite low, like the price differential is quite low, experience has shown me that because of the effort involved to switch to another platform, solution, training, what have you, is that much higher that our customers decide, or our potential buyer decides to stay with the platform that they're at, right? And that seems very straightforward, like I get it, right? And it is. But when you're having when you learn how to do really good discovery and you learn the art of conversation and the art of back and forth, this is actually very natural. Like how I'm doing it now, how I'm showing you how to do it now, it seems very straightforward. It could seem a little bit scary and risky because your brain thinks it's risky. It's like, oh no, but understand that we're talking about it in this little box, right? So we're talking about a very small segment of the conversation. So to sum up, we need to understand the cost of inaction. We need to understand how big it is, and we need to give a voice to everything that's not being said by your buyer. Like guaranteed, they're thinking about how much effort it is to change. And that's why your cost of inaction has to be 3 to 4 times the price of your product, solution, or service generally, for them to be able to get over that hump and make the switch. And also, when you are putting together your recommendation for your buyer, your potential buyer, remember, we're talking about a recommendation versus a proposal. And there's many reasons why we do a recommendation versus just a common proposal that all the other sellers are doing. We do that because we want to have influence with regards to what we're recommending, and we want to have influence in the sale and in the buyer's mind, and we help them sell to whoever they need to present it to internally, right? So just as an aside, there's that. So if you find that there's no urgency through the cost of inaction, through asking the question, what happens if you do nothing? What happens if your current vendor comes back, discounts the price, fixes the issues? What happens if they give you an extra month or something like this, right? We're giving a voice to the things that could potentially happen. And that one question will uncover the urgency, and it will allow you to fix whatever you can fix within the deal, or influence whatever you need to influence in the deal, so that you either know it's going to close, it has the potential to close, so your pipeline is not bloated and it's not pushing month to month, or you can push it back to a latter stage or keep it in the qualification stage until such time that you determine that you need to either close lost it or you can progress it to the next stage because you found another issue that you can help fix. And remember, we're always doing what's in the buyer's best interest. But in order to do that, we have to ask the tough questions, and we have to understand that there's more going on than what our buyer may actually tell us. And I promise you, in that one example with my coaching client, if he had not gone back and asked that question, re-engaged, he would not have gotten the answer. And he probably would have gotten ghosted and the deal would have pushed month to month to month till we just lost it. So that is the one question to ask with context to uncover urgency and to influence whether the deal is going to close or not. So that way you have a lot more control and your buyer knows that you're thinking about them and you're doing what's in their best interest and you have more influence over the deal. Okay, so that is it for today. Again, if you want to talk to me about one-to-one coaching, these are some of the things that I help AEs with. I would really love to help you look at one of your discovery calls. Maybe I'll give you 3 things that will help you up-level your discovery, get your business acumen so much better and stronger, get your confidence stronger so you can close more deals faster with a higher ARR. DM me AE if you're interested in that. Other than that, I will see you next time with another episode of Sales Q&A Daily for AEs. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.